there. Are we back? Jen, will you text me if you can hear me if we're back? Back? Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. I don't know.
I can hear you. Twitch is back. Look.
How long was I down for?
Okay,
How long was I talking?
Okay, I moved over to a new YouTube.
How long was I talking into the void? Would the other one end? It just ends when that happens?
Okay, I can hear you on Twitch. Wait, are you talking right now?
Yeah, I'm talking. Can you hear me?
Are you muted?
No. It's not muted. Other people are saying they can hear me.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, I can hear you. I think you just can't hear me. And I think everybody can hear Jen, but Jen can't hear me. All right. Where do we leave off? When it cut off, was I talking about EVs? I said Amy Lynn said that Q1 EV sales in the U.S. are at a 94% increase for GM. Let me just get through messages real quick, and then we'll move on. Jen, do you want to do your announcements while I add this up?
I'm trying to see if there's. Whatever. Okay. There's not that. I was just trying to make sure that there wasn't an echo for me. Okay. All right. So, do we want to? So it's building back up. The other YouTube ended. So
it's on the other one now?
All right. So technical difficulties wouldn't be a day in RTB land. If we didn't have some kind of technical difficulties, I guess. If you haven't already subscribed to us on Twitch, please do so. With your Amazon Prime sub, please subscribe to us on YouTube so you can get turn the notifications on so you can get alerts on when we're live. We have 4 different memberships. If you disagree with Jay, you can if you disagree with Jay, you can DM me on Discord, Jen, JENN, DUBB, the number 1, and we can get you on to talk one-on-one. Like I mentioned before, we're way far away from the gift goal, so Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, Super Chats all go towards knocking out the rest of that gift goal. And what's the most violent mountain?
Kilimanjaro?
I don't hear. Do you have your
Oh yeah, you can't
your
hear
mic turned on for
it's weird
our chat because I can't hear you in it at all.
I don't know. I haven't changed anything. It's possible. Let me look.
Okay. All right. The most violent mountain is Kilimanjaro.
I was right. All right. Thanks, Jen. Yeah, this is the car that I rented this last weekend, by the way.
I couldn't hear you, so I don't know.
You're good. I was telling you guys that I rented this little EV this last weekend, and it was cool to drive, but every spot is a blind spot. Impossible not to run into people. So we're coming a long way. I don't know where we left off there. We're just gonna go on to the next subject. Let's see. This is breaking this morning or yesterday.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis under increased scrutiny.
If you are a governor or a representative from Florida and you're not doing Medicare fraud or Medicaid fraud, what are you even doing? That's what you do in Florida. So I just want to say, shout out to Ron DeSantis for keeping the spirit and the traditions of Florida alive and stealing money from the poor to give to your friends. Here is a news story breaking out of Florida, and we'll follow up on this as new stuff breaks.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis under increased scrutiny over millions of dollars supposed to be used to help struggling families, instead diverted to political committees set up to help the governor further his political agenda. CBS News has learned that $10 million meant for taxpayers was instead sent to the Hope Florida Foundation, a nonprofit originally created to support First Lady Casey DeSantis' signature program, which was called Hope Florida. Part of this money was put toward Governor DeSantis' successful political fight against the constitutional amendment that would have legalized recreational marijuana in Florida. CBS News Miami investigative reporter Jim DeFeeti joins me now.
Now, if you remember in Florida, because you don't have real rights in Florida, almost 60% of Florida voted to approve recreational marijuana, and the Florida legislature has made a rule that if you don't get above 60%, they can just then you can't pass a ballot initiative. So even though a majority of people in Florida want to have recreational marijuana, sorry, you can't have it because Ron knows better than you.
Jim, I'm always happy to see you. You are so dialed in on so many things in Florida. This story has some complexities to it, so gently, if you'd be so kind, walk our audience through the complexities and the questions.
All right, so here's what I could basically say is that the state of Florida learned that they were being overbilled for Medicaid and that they were owed $67 million. And the Ron DeSantis administration told that company, okay, return $57 million to the Florida taxpayers and send $10 million to the Hope Florida Foundation. Now, under state rules and laws, you are supposed to reveal any details of a settlement with a company that you're returning money to the state of Florida to.
Okay, where's this is the question I've got. 57 million needs to be returned to the state of Florida for overbilling. You can just siphon off 10 million for your wife's foundation so that you can fight against medical marijuana. This is Medicare money. Why don't you? I don't know why Florida doesn't ever fucking care when your leadership steals from you. The end of it should have been Rick Scott. That should have been the. But then you guys are like, let's make him our senator. Let's prop him up even more. We love fraudsters in Florida.
They never reported the $10 million to Hope Florida Foundation. That came out later. From there, within days of the money going into the Hope Florida Foundation, a nonprofit, the money was then diverted to two political committees that then transferred the money to a third political committee, Keep Florida Clean, which was being run by then Governor Ron DeSantis' chief of staff, James Uthmeyer, who today is the sitting attorney general in Florida. And they used that money, it is believed, to fight the marijuana initiative. So
cool. Did we use it for poor people? Nah. Did we use it to give people better health care? Nah. Did we help people who were affected by hurricanes? Nah. What did we do? We kept these people who just went through a hurricane from having recreational marijuana. God bless the Republicans. That's freedom, baby. If that's not freedom, I don't know what is. Take those Medicare dollars and let fund the GOP. Why is that money going to the Florida GOP? Why is it going to the Florida Freedom Fund? Why is it going to secure Florida's future and save our society from drugs? Keep Florida clean. Why is it going to all these? This is Medicare money. You guys, ironically, you think that you guys are uncovering fraud. Every day it is uncovered that you guys are doing fraud. The reason the Republican leadership keeps telling you about waste, fraud, and abuse is so that you'll ignore their waste, fraud, and abuse. So that when we show you this, you're going to say things like, well, what about the trans opera in Iraq? I don't remember where it is ever. How come you're giving out condoms in Africa? This is why. So that when you see shit like this that's obviously corrupt, you don't care about it. That's why they do all this shit. And that's why they can get away with it, because you guys don't actually care. It's a game to you.
And they use that money, it is believed, to fight the marijuana initiative. So to put it as succinctly as possible, money that should have been returned to taxpayers ended up in a political action committee controlled and designated by the governor to fight a political campaign.
Jim, that was brilliant and succinct. Is it, under Florida law, illegal or unethical? Either one. What you just described.
That's a really interesting question, and the state house has been holding hearings. Nobody is willing to go as far as to say there's criminality for sure, but in speaking to the chairman of the committee that's investigating this, a Republican chairman, mind you, he does say that the Department of Justice and the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Florida should look into this because this was Medicare dollars, partly federal dollars that should have been returned to the state of Florida and were not. And there's a larger question here, too. Now, the governor has failed to actually address any of these issues. Hope Florida was the signature program by Casey DeSantis. And as you know, there's been a lot of speculation that Casey DeSantis wants to run for governor. And she was going to use her work with Hope Florida as the springboard, the launching pad to say, look at the good work I've done during my term as First Lady. I should be governor. Now, she hasn't declared, but there are people who think that she will. And she was going to use Hope Florida. That raises then the question of what does Hope Florida really accomplish? Hope Florida and the First Lady claim that 30,000 Floridians have been moved off of welfare to being helped by private charities and religious groups. However, they haven't provided any support for any of that. In fact,
there's no evidence that they've done that, right? They've actually just taken people off of Medicare, and then they're like, now the charities are taking care of them. Do you have evidence of that? We do not. But we did fight against we did take some of that money and fight against legislating or legalizing marijuana. This is how easy it is. Like if you are a fraudster, if you're a scammer, you gotta look at the GOP and just absolutely drool. Like, oh my God, I gotta get in there. I've gotta get. These people are so goddamn dumb. They'll believe anything. Crypto scams, ETF scams, Medicare fraud. As long as you get up on stage and you talk about the woke mind virus and you talk about hating libs, they'll just vote for you. You can rob Republicans blind and they don't care. They're just like, as long as you have the same bigotry as we have, then that's fine. Rob us blind. We do not care.
The chair of the committee that I interviewed, a Republican from Pensacola, Alex Andrade, makes clear that there is no metrics by which they've been able to ascertain whether Hope Florida has actually worked. I think we have some of that sound. We can play it for you now.
I could not tell you if Hope Florida, the operational arm, has done anything to assist Florida families beyond what state employees were supposed to already be doing. I was shocked to find out this week that other than this $10 million in illicit money they received, they'd only raised about $2 million so far in their entire existence, and they'd only written $500,000 worth of grants.
Oh,
now I'll tell you that.
Appreciate you being in here. This is only a left-wing echo chamber because none of you Republicans have any courage to have a discussion. If you are upset that I am espousing views from the left as a leftist, one, I don't know why you're surprised. And two, if you'd like to add some balance to this, you can add Jen on Discord, and we'll gladly bring you up. It's JenDub1 on Discord. You can come on up. We'd be happy to hear from you.
Andrade, the state representative you just saw, is planning on holding several hours of new hearings this week and is threatening to even issue subpoenas to the now Attorney General if he needs him to testify if he won't come in voluntarily.
That phrase, illicit money, is probably going to ricochet around Tallahassee and other parts of Florida. Jim DeFede, as always, I thank you, sir.
Thank you.
There we are. Just more fraud, more scams. Nothing, just business as usual for the GOP down there in Florida. Jamar says Elon sounds like his alien dog died. He's not a human, and neither is his pet. Natalie says, why are flowers so popular? They have a lot of buds. You know who doesn't have a lot of buds is Florida, because they fucked you on marijuana legislation. So sorry, Florida. Let's see. Is this the right one? Let's skip that one. I'm going to move into the. Did I lose it? The stream again? Chat just went. God, things are really fucking up today. The chat just disappeared. Hopefully you guys are still here. All right. To trade. Now on to trade. I'm going to get to it in a second, but Donald Trump has absolutely got obliterated in this trade war. And the reason I'm showing this video from Jeffrey Sachs, I've shown clips of this before, is I want it to be very clear and to everybody how incompetent Trump is when it comes to trade, how little he understands, and how basic it is to understand it. If you think Trump is saying things that are intelligent when it comes to trade, like just go listen to anybody who does this as a job. Listen to any economist, and it becomes painfully clear very quickly that Trump doesn't know what he's talking about. Here's Jeffrey Sachs pointing that out.
If you take your credit card and you go shopping, and you run up a large credit card debt, you're running a trade deficit with all those shops. Now, it would be pretty strange if you then blamed all the shop owners for having sold you all those things. You're ripping me off, you're ripping me off, you're ripping me off, I'm running a trade deficit. That is the level of understanding of the President of the United States. The trade deficit does not represent at all trade policies. It represents spending relative to production or earnings. We call that an identity. I teach it in the second day of my course in international monetary economics. Trump never made it to the second day. The U.S. government.
All he had to do to not fuck this whole thing up was just like stay for the second day. That's all he had to do. He couldn't be bothered.
Spends about.
The video has echo? What in the fuck? So there's got to be a mic being. Oh, you know what? Let me look at something. It might be my webcam. Let me look. Sorry about the echo, guys. No capture. No. Is everybody getting the echo? Let me just look at it. I don't know how it's giving an echo here. Let me look at the input. All right, let's see if this is any better.
$2 trillion a year more than it takes in revenues. What it's doing is making transfers to the American people and to American businesses. It doesn't tax Americans for those transfers because, here's another little fact, because the congressmen that vote on the budget got into office by being paid for their campaigns by rich people who don't like taxes. So the political system says spend, but don't tax us. So we run a chronic deficit in the United States. That spending goes out either as transfer payments or goods and services, and that's more than our national income, which is about $30 trillion, and our spending is about $31 trillion. And that's
Thanks, Devin.
our trade deficit. And for that, Donald Trump blames the world.
Yeah.
Okay, I fail him for this.
Why? It's like, yeah, you run up 30,000 in credit cards debt, and then you're like, hey, I don't think it's all those stores' fault. If those stores weren't there, I couldn't have spent money on my credit card. It's the store's fault. That's Donald Trump, though. That's his entire personality. Blame everybody but yourself. Always, always, always. Thanks, Hey Howdy, for joining the Dollar Train too.
If he were my student, he's my president. It's a little weirder because when he did this, in 2 days, the world lost $10 trillion of market capitalization. By the way, where did it go? Did it get transferred from here to here? No, it got destroyed. Why destroyed? Because trade, something also the President of the United States doesn't understand,
Thanks, Pink.
is mutually beneficial. So if you stop trade, everybody loses.
Thanks,
it's
man.
not that one side wins, the other side loses. He cannot understand that concept as a guy that traded real estate in New York.
Let's just taking out like even just the stuff about Trump. This is very simple to understand. And I think sometimes we think that politicians are brilliant. We think that economics is incredibly difficult. And so we say like, oh, there's Trump has this view, and on the left they have a different view, and it's really about ideology. But the arguments that we're having right now when it comes to trade have nothing to do with ideology. They have nothing to do with plans. It has to do with one person, Donald Trump, doesn't understand what words mean. He doesn't understand what tariffs do. He doesn't understand who pays tariffs. He doesn't understand what a trade deficit is. And that's the real problem. When you have somebody who doesn't understand any of the core tenets of trade, running trade, it looks insane. And it's insane, incompetent, whatever you want to call it. That's where we have a disagreement here. We have a disagreement on, I don't think he understands it. And as proof that he doesn't understand it, we're going to get to it in a minute, he's completely changed all of his views seemingly overnight.
So his idea is somebody had to win, somebody had to lose. But what happened when he made this announcement was $10 trillion was wiped out worldwide. It's not that the U.S. went up and they went down. No, everybody went down. Because the whole world system is based on a division of labor, and he's breaking that division of labor into pieces. So then people said, this doesn't make sense. Even the very rich people that gave him the money for him to get into office.
All right, here we go. Nova 33. I'm gonna help you here. Zero facts, just a bunch of people saying he doesn't understand it, but not how. Let me explain it to you. Donald Trump says that we are going to slap tariffs on China and all these other countries. And then we are going to take the money that those other countries pay us for tariffs and use that as revenue. And when he's been confronted about this and people say, sir, other countries don't pay tariffs. We pay tariffs. He says, yes, they do. How do we move past that? He doesn't know who pays the tariff. It is as simple as I can make it for you. He doesn't know who pays tariffs. If he doesn't know who pays the tariffs, then when he puts tariffs on goods and it taxes the American people, and then they go to him and say, this is a tax on the American people, and he says, no, it's not. It's a tax on China. Where do we go from there? He does not know who pays tariffs. I hope that's specific enough for you. We cannot have a trade war where the person negotiating the trade war doesn't understand how anything works.
Started saying this doesn't make sense. The hedge fund managers who are his big campaign contributors, Elon Musk, who paid for his election and became prime minister, he said this doesn't make sense. And then the markets said this doesn't make sense. Not only $10 trillion, but as the finance minister said, interest rates started to rise because people began to dump U.S. Treasury debt. It's not quite true that he reversed things. First, he left on this 10% tariff, except for one country, for China,
145%
where he
on
raised
products.
the tariff rates. That's because the United States has a deep, neurotic attachment to China.
We're terrified of China. We are terrified that China is passing us. And that's fine. I mean, I'm not really that worried about that. I don't think it matters, to be frank. I don't think it matters if we're number 2 or if we're number 3. I think it matters to rich people. I think it matters to massive corporations. I think it matters to the people who are in power that lean on China and depend on China in order for them to maintain their power and their money. I think it matters an awful lot to them. And I think it matters an awful lot to Donald Trump, who is like, he wants to be number 1. It's very important to be number 1 for him. We have an obsession with China, and that's fine. Like, even if I disagree with Trump, like if I don't care that we're number 1 and Trump does, at least he could have economic policies that make sense. At least he could have trade negotiations that make sense. Now, he said, and we'll cut that there, he said that he was using these to bring China to the negotiating table. And he said that we were getting wrecked on trade with China. And he said he was going to do the same thing to every other country. He has dropped the tariffs on every other country. We have no new trade agreements. So I don't know what he has negotiated so far. But I do know that today Trump surrendered. Trump just said, China, you win. You called my bluff. I can't keep pretending that this trade war is working. China, you win.
And our country's getting stronger all the time because the other was not sustainable.
With China. Are you going to play hardball with them? Are you going to mention COVID?
Well, I'm not going to say. No, I'm not going to mention COVID. I'm not going to say, oh, I'm going to play hardball with China.
He's been telling us he's going to play hardball with China. He's been telling us he was part of the trade deal is they were going to get to the bottom of COVID. Now he's saying I'm going to negotiate with China. I'm not going to play hardball, and I'm not going to bring up COVID. What happened? Mr. Master Trade Negotiator here, out of nowhere. Never mind. I'm going to drop all these tariffs, and I'm not even going to do anything about COVID. Turns out I'm just a fucking idiot. He's just backtracking now.
China. I'm going to play hardball with you, President Xi. No. We're going to be very nice. They're going to be very nice, and we'll see what happens. But ultimately, they have to make a deal because otherwise they're not going to be able to deal in the United States. And we want.
And they're fine with that. The thing that Trump is finding out very quickly, and you guys are finding out, is that China has the leverage. China's winning this war. Trump, I'm gonna do 80% tariffs. China's like, fuck it, then we're doing 80%. I'm gonna do 100% tariffs. Fine, we're doing 100%. I'm gonna do 145%. Fine, we're doing 145%. I'm gonna do 200%. Fine, we're gonna do 200%. And while Trump sat there blithering like a moron in the Oval Office, China went out and started negotiating trade deals all around the world. While Trump has accomplished nothing in terms of trade deals, China is going to every country that Trump stupidly slapped tariffs on, and they're negotiating trade deals. And those trade deals are better for that country than they were with us. China is absolutely crushing Trump. And Trump is having to backpedal now and spin this like he won because all these donors, all the corporations are saying, you fucking idiot, dude. It's like you're gonna destroy our economy. You're gonna wreck our economy. Now, remember, there were many of you who were just saying last week, oh, this is 4D chess. He's gonna break down the economy so we can reset. We have to remove our dependence on China. You were all here in the chat last week. Oh, we gotta no more China. Fuck China. We don't need them. Well, then why did he just say we need them? Why did he drop this whole thing? Why is he dropping all this shit now? You guys, and it's now for the rest of the week, starting today on, you're gonna be like, yeah, he was a master negotiator. He knew this all along. He was gonna do this all along. See how quickly you guys are forced to change your entire opinion? You've been saying forever that other countries pay tariffs, which is stupid. You say it because he says it. You're confronted with proof that they don't, and you're just like, nah, they pay the tariffs. It's got to be exhausting following a fucking moron all the time. You're wrong always. Almost always you're wrong. This is a video I already played, but I want to show you why Trump lost this trade war. And I want to show you another thing. Trump said that before he came into office, we didn't have tariffs on China. And that's kind of true. Like, we had historically had tariffs on China, but when Trump came into office, Trump's like, fuck China. We have a trade deficit. They're fucking us. I'm a master negotiator. I'm going to bring China to the negotiating table, and I'm going to win this trade war. And that started in 2017. So let's just look at, and by the way, the Biden administration followed suit. They slapped tariffs. They kept a lot of those tariffs in place, and they slapped tariffs on Chinese EVs. Trump was wrong. So was Biden, and the evidence shows that. Here's the evidence that shows that starting a trade war with China was a really bad fucking move.
Try to keep this one short, so buckle up. You know how everybody's saying
millions be jogging, millions of dollars I'm getting paid. If you look at the chat here, every time somebody sends a super chat, if you add that up at the end, that's how much we're getting paid. You can add that up.
That they're so sure that these tariffs are going to destroy the Chinese economy. Let's take a look at whether or not that's reasonable. You know I love this website. This is the OEC website. The most recent year for which there is data is 2023. In 2023, of the $3.42 trillion of the Chinese export market, 12.8% of that went to the United States. Now, if we page back by year, watch what happens to the United States share of Chinese exports. 12.8, 15.5, 16, 16.7, 16.9, 19.8, 20%, right? It's basically been it's decreasing year over year significantly, okay? That's important. Keep that in your mind.
So when he brags and says, I was the first one to do this, what China did is as soon as he slapped tariffs on China said, all right, we're going to start doing business elsewhere. We're going to, and China is calculated. They didn't come out and publicly state it because they're not like Trump where they have to announce every time they fart. But they just quietly behind the scenes started negotiating better deals with other countries. And they quietly started taking trade deals that previously had gone to the United States. And they quietly just basically took over all the trade in Africa. And they quietly took over all the trade in the Middle East. And they quietly are taking over all the trade in South America. And when you look at the map of where the United States is controlling trade, it's basically Mexico, Canada, and the EU. And that's it. And China has everything else now. But China was meticulous, China was calculated, and China is not they're not a bull in the china shop. They're not a horse in a hospital. China said, "Okay, we see where you're going. We're going to quietly go about business and we're going to distance ourselves from the United States." So ever since Trump started slapping tariffs on China, China went from 20% of their exports coming to us to 12%. And when you look at their total GDP, it's less than 2%. They can lose 2% of their GDP. What the fuck are we going to do without smartphones, folks? What are we going to do without laptops? What are we going to do? We can't win. We are too dependent on China. We cannot win this trade war. We do not have a position of leverage. It's been proven time and time again. And by the way, this was predicted. I'm going to show you some videos. I want to go through all the people who were right about Trump, all the people who correctly predicted this, and just remind you guys, like, you're listening to the wrong people on your side of the aisle. The smartest people in the Republican Party have been run out. Anybody with any intelligence and any spine has been run out of your party, and they were all right. And Trump was wrong on everything, and you're still here like, oh, we got to follow this guy. Trudy, just a reminder to process payroll, chat. Thanks, Trudy.
The most recent year for which we have data is 2023. Okay? So you can probably reasonably expect that 2024, when those numbers come in, they're going to come in less than 12.8%. But we're going to use 12.8% in a later calculation because we don't have a better number than that. What percent of Chinese GDP totally is in all of their exports? Just 18.9%. Just so you know, there's no funny business, 18.9% times 0.128, 12.8%, 2.419%.
That's our share of their GDP, 2.4%. They tell you over and over again. This administration keeps telling you over and over again, guys, we promise we have the leverage. We promise. And some of you get mad like, oh, why are you guys rooting on China? I'm not rooting on China. I'm being honest. They're winning. What do you want me to do? What do you want us to say? You want us to just lie to you like Daddy Trump does? They're lying to you. China doesn't need us. China can deal with 2.419% of their GDP being taken away. They can deal with it. We can't. We cannot survive without Chinese goods right now. We don't have the manufacturing. We don't have trade deals with other partners. We have nothing to replace China with, which is why Trump is caving today. So that means all these losses in the stock market, all that shit, it didn't ever need to happen. None of this transfer of wealth needed to happen. All Trump had to do at the beginning was just listen to people smarter than him. Now he finally is. because he's going to lose control of everything. If we continue down this road, House is gone, Senate's gone, and then the presidency is gone, and you guys won't get it back for a very, very long time. Because at the rate that we're going, you legitimately are going to bankrupt America. Legitimately. You're going to bankrupt millions of families. People will lose their homes. They will lose their jobs. They will lose their livelihood. They will lose their health insurance. They will lose their doctors. This pace is unsustainable. And you've all been waiting for this 4D chess, this magic potion that Trump has, where he kept telling you, guys, I've got a plan. And you keep saying, we're going to give him time. We're going to give him time. We're going to give him time. You're still giving him time today. And he quit. He quit. Go ahead. I lose. You win. I'm going to tell my people that I won. He just abandoned his whole strategy. What benefit did we get? Fucking none. This is what happens when you elect a goddamn moron and not the people you could have elected. You could have elected good Republicans who I disagree with vehemently, but who would have been sensible on trade. All of this shit that we've been dealing with, we didn't have to deal with it. None of it. Trump just inflicts pain because all he knows is chaos.
There you have it. The total share of the Chinese economy that is reliant on exporting to the United States is less than half of what they grow by every single year. Do you think this is going to destroy the Chinese economy if their GDP growth just halves? And that's assuming they don't find new markets and new buyers for all of those products that were going to the United States elsewhere in the world. Because you can be damn sure that other people in the world like consuming things too. The best case scenario.
Here's a real scenario for me. Let's just say that the United States had continued down this road and Trump didn't completely cave and give in. Let's just say he went down this road. I, who make a living on the internet and who require updated technologies, specifically stuff from like NVIDIA, microchips, fast processors, I would be looking at Mexico and I would say, oh, they've got a trade agreement with China. If I go to Mexico, I can get a cheaper electric vehicle and I'll have access to all this Chinese technology that I desperately need, while America will be building out manufacturing plants and saying, in 10 years, we'll have you guys up and running. You would see a mass exodus of not only companies in America, but of people. Because it would put us so far behind. Trump's trade war, had he carried this out and not completely abandoned it, the trade war would have left us literally 10 years behind. We would have had to start with a 10-year disadvantage. And then we'd have to figure out some way that we're like our wages are going to work out and we're going to manufacture this stuff at the rate and with the efficiency of the Chinese not government, the Chinese. We would have been so far behind. We would have been fucked. And I honestly, like capital flight would have been real. Just any flight, I would have been gone. I know that's probably good for a lot of you guys, but you wouldn't be in a country that was very cool.
That the United States has is that they can have Chinese GDP growth and put Chinese GDP growth somewhere near what America does in its best years. Okay? But this year, at least, we're pretty sure, even the president is saying, this is going to suck, this is going to be painful, because we know that we're going to cause a decline in GDP growth. We're going to hurt our economy.
All right, that stuff's all stuff that doesn't matter now because Trump capitulated. Andrea says, it's almost payday, so I'm paying my tariffs. Thanks for all you two do. Thank you. Trudy, I think I read that one already. I think there was one here. Bree said, don't say my government name, Jay. I'm here for Jen, but also Twitch chat. Y'all are hot as fuck. What's going on in the Twitch chat over there? What am I missing over on in the Twitch chat? All right. Let me get to this. Now you guys are going to get pissed off. Be real ready for some MAGA tears here because this is just going to be nonstop proof that Trump not only didn't know what he was doing, but he had to capitulate to people a lot smarter than him. This is from Axios today. Trump got a scare from CEOs and markets on Monday. On Tuesday, he blunted some of his sharpest threats, signaling a softer stance on China and retreating from fiery rhetoric rhetoric targeting the Fed. Here's what happened. The CEOs of 3 of the nation's biggest retailers, Walmart, Target, and Home Depot, privately warned him that his tariff and trade policy could disrupt supply chains, raise prices, and empty shelves, according to sources familiar with the meeting. The big box CEOs flat out told him the prices aren't going up. They're steady right now, but they will go up. And this wasn't about food. But he was told that shelves will be empty. An administration official familiar with the meeting told Axios. Another official briefed on the meeting said the CEOs told Trump disruptions could become noticeable in just 2 weeks. While that was happening, financial markets were slumping, stocks, bonds, the dollar, as investors panicked about Trump's latest threats to oust Fed Chair Jerome Powell and step on the central bank's independence, which, by the way, Trump backtracked on that now, too, and said he is not even thinking about firing Jerome Powell. This dude changed his entire strategy after he met with Walmart, Target, and Home Depot. He changed his whole strategy. And there's like, oh, by the way, I didn't mean what I was saying about Jerome Powell. I'm not going to fire that guy either. So all of you who said, oh, you got to get rid of Jerome Powell. Oh, we're gonna fight this tariff war. We can last. I don't care if it takes 2 years. Trump has a plan. I trust Trump. Trust Trump's plan. Well, he quit. The plan's over. It's done now. You trusted it. It sucked. And so now he's just doing ours again. Now he's just doing like business as usual again because he's so goddamn dumb. Then on Tuesday, he turned the dial down. His Treasury Secretary and then his press secretary and then Trump himself all indicated that trade talks with China were imminent, starting on a good foot, and would result in a deal with much lower tariffs than the current 145%. Trump then told reporters in the Oval that he had no intention of firing Jerome Powell, even though his top economic advisor said last week that the White House was studying the details of doing exactly that. I think was he talking about Besant? Let's see, who was it? Besant, excuse me. I'm not going to pay for this. I don't know who he was talking about. I think it was Besant that said that. Markets have gotten what they wanted, promptly rallied hard, stocks soared, and the dollar surged. This is what Donald Trump does. He leads with leverage, the official said. He gets people to the table. China has expressed interest in negotiation, and the president has made clear that if they play ball, he'll play ball too. This was 4D chess. This was unbelievable. What he did is he took the tariffs that we already had that China was okay with, and then he added more, and so China said, fuck you. And now he's taking them away, and China's like, all right. And so we're calling him, this is what he does. He uses his leverage to get the exact same fucking deal that we already had. Unbelievable stuff by Trump. How does he do it? How does he do it every single time? Mexico, Canada, I'm looking at you. I'm going to tariff the shit out of you. What if you didn't? All right, I won't. All right. No tariffs added. I'm going to tariff the whole world. Stock market crashes. Never mind. Just kidding. I'm going to tariff the shit out of China. China's like, go for it. We don't fucking care. All right. Well, now Walmart, Home Depot, and Target are pissed at me. Do you guys want to negotiate? And China's like, yeah, sure. We can have a conversation. Let's have a conversation. He didn't win. He got his absolute dick kicked in because he's a fucking moron. And I know that it hurts, but some of you guys might just be realizing for the very first time that he's a fucking idiot. And that hurts. That's hard. I remember when I found out that the prophet of my church was lying to me. It was devastating. I thought he was brilliant and he wasn't. Here's Scott Bessent now walking it all back. Remember, these are the guys. This is Scott Bessent. We're gonna run this trade war. We're gonna beat China, and we're gonna do it as long as it takes. Apparently, it's over.
I wish to be clear. America first does not mean America alone.
Oh.
To the contrary, it is a call for deeper collaboration and mutual respect among trade partners.
Woo! You motherfuckers been calling me a globalist for saying that. You guys call me a globalist every day for saying exactly that. I don't want to be a nationalist. I like global trade. I like collaboration with other countries. Oh, you fucking globalists. You hate America. Trump administration Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. We should be more collaborative. Oh, yeah, MAGA, America first.
Collaboration and mutual respect among trade partners. Far from stepping back, America First seeks to expand U.S. leadership in international institutions like the IMF and the World Bank. By embracing a stronger leadership role, America First seeks to restore fairness to the international economic system.
We fucked it all up, and we had really unfair trade practices for about a month. And now we're going to restore it to the exact fucking way it was when we got it. Our bad. My bad. Sorry. Please, China, accept our apology. Please, China, negotiate with us. We understand we got killed in this negotiation. Please, pretty please, China, we'll go back to the good boys that we were before.
I wish to be clear. America First does not mean...
that was the end of it. I actually want to play that again.
America First does not mean America alone.
That's right. Some of you guys didn't know that. Some of you guys thought America First did mean America alone, because not that long ago, that's what they told you. But it turns out globalism's a good thing. Nationalism is stupid, and all that rhetoric they use to get you excited to vote for Trump, they were either lying to you or they've just discovered that it's stupid. Here you go. This is 2016. This is a person who you guys fucking hate. This was the smartest person that has ever run for president on the GOP platform. This was the best option you ever had. And yeah, I worked for him. And no, I don't agree with him anymore on a lot of things. But goddamn, if anybody, I don't know if anybody's ever been more right about Donald Trump, more consistently right about Donald Trump. Here is Romney at the Hinckley Institute in Park City, Utah in 2016, before Trump took office, predicting exactly what would happen if Trump took office. And here you go.
Here's what I know. Donald Trump is a phony, a fraud. His promises are as worthless as a degree from Trump University. He's playing the members of the American public for suckers.
That's you.
He gets a free ride to the White House, and all we get is a lousy hat. His domestic policies would lead to recession.
Yep.
His foreign policies would make America and the world less safe.
Yep.
He has neither the temperament nor the judgment to be president, and his personal qualities would mean that America would cease to be a shining city on a hill.
Yeah. Clock it. Don't worry, I got more Mitt Romney. Here was him warning us about a Trump second term. Remember, we're 2 months in. He was dead right about a second term for Trump.
Do you think a second Trump term would look like?
Well, I think if you can look at the last few months of his presidency, you'd suggest that that's the kind of thing you might see, that he would not have the generals around him as he did last time, people of judgment and experience offering advice, and in some cases restraining his impulses. Instead, he would have people around him encouraging his impulses and perhaps adding to them. And I'm afraid you'd find the nation more divided. Look, our nation doesn't need to be divided right now. A campaign based on anger and hate may win at the ballot box temporarily, but it tears the country apart. The other day, the former president said that we are at greater threat for what is within. I think that was in some respects a self-own, because what's within, if he were to become elected president again, is a campaign of retribution and anger and hate. That's not what America's based on. America was based on the idea of in God we trust and united we stand. Divided we fall. Divided nation is not the nation America is intended to be.
Could have had Mitt Romney, guys. You could have had a sensible trade policy. You could have had all the things that you want. You could have had all the things you wanted with Nikki Haley. But you couldn't. You just couldn't. You had to go with the bully. You had to go with the asshole. You had to ignore the fact that a guy lied to you all the time. You just ignore every character flaw this man has. You just had to ignore it. Why? Because we hate him. You guys were completely played. We hate him, rightfully so. So you voted for him. And you could have had sensible options. And you could have had options that didn't fuck up the economy. You could have had options that would be respected on a world stage. And we wouldn't have liked them. but it wouldn't have been this. You could have had a president who was focused on leading, on signing bills, and not going after all of his political enemies. That's all this motherfucker's doing. That's all he's doing. Every day he wakes up and signs a new executive order. This 60 Minutes edited an interview and I didn't like it. And so now we're going after 60 Minutes. It's the whiniest, bitchiest group of people, and you love it. You could have had something good. But the problem is you're just so dead set on becoming victims. You're so sad that people don't pity you. Your mediocre lives are mediocre because you're mediocre and you want somebody to blame. So when Donald Trump gives you trans people and immigrants and woke mind viruses and he blames all of us for your problems, you love it because it's an escape route for you. You get to be like, oh, no. All of our problems aren't because I'm mediocre and because our policies don't work. It's you. It's the woke shit. It's because of wokeism that we're $36 trillion in debt. It's because of wokeism that American manufacturing has fled the United States. It's because of wokeism that we underfund our schools. It's because of wokeism that 30 million Americans don't have health insurance. It's because wokeism that the number one cause of bankruptcy is medical debt. It's because of wokeism that college is unaffordable and inaccessible. It's because of wokeism that red states are the least educated states in the country. See how easy it is to dupe you? You just blame everything on woke. Blame it on immigrants. Blame it on people that look different than you, and you'll buy anything. Even when it's so transparent, even when it's so obvious to people in your own party that none of this shit will work, that it's dumb, that we've already seen Trump try this and it didn't work the first time. So he's like, I'll just double down and do it again. Johnny said it was all fucking planned. It's market manipulation. Johnny, honest to God, I think you're giving too much credit to Trump. I think that people might have predicted what he was going to do. And people are in his ear convincing him to do things so they can manipulate the markets. But I think you're giving way too much credit to him to say like this was his plan. Jennifer, thank you for the donation over on Cash App. I appreciate it. And I got that one too. That's
saying,
oh.
I created us a new VC. I can hear you now, so I can do.
All right, do your thing.
Because I couldn't hear you before; it was driving me nuts. All right, so we've got about hour and 10 minutes left of the show. So we do this each day, Monday through Friday, from 9:30 to 1 Pacific time. So since this is our job, as much as people in the comments and YouTube say it's not, it is. Sucks to suck. That's just what this is. And we are crowdfunded. So Venmo, Cash App, PayPal, Super Chats all go towards knocking out that gift goal so we can keep doing this every day and making people so mad. So if you guys could help knock that out in the next hour, we'd really, really appreciate it. So yeah, there's that. If you haven't subscribed to us on Twitch and YouTube, please do so. If you haven't checked out our content, we put out regular videos each day. If you go and engage with those videos, comment, share, like, all that kind of stuff helps push the content as well. If you disagree with Jay, how to talk to him is you look at the Venmo username, JenDub1, 2 N's, 2 B's. DM me on Discord and I can bring you in to talk to him directly one-on-one. You don't have to argue in the comments. So that's how you get on to talk to RTP. He's open to have a conversation. If you guys are willing to download a free app to do so. Also check out our link tree in the bio. We are on most social media platforms and we've got merchandise. So you're that. So did I ever tell you about that job interview I went on?
No, you didn't.
They asked me what was my greatest weakness, and I told them that I'm too honest. And they said, I don't think honesty is a weakness. And then I told them, well, I don't really give a fuck what you think. So it didn't go well for me.
Thanks, Jen. Amy Lynn said, I don't even know how Trump changing is going to help. The other countries made deals that excluded us already. Yeah, no, he's fucked this up. We're behind. I don't. If I was another country, I would not want to negotiate with Trump. And if I was another country, I would be hesitant for a while to negotiate with the United States, knowing that there's a substantial amount of people in this country who would vote to put somebody in power to do that again. I think the United States is going to have to look really hard at taking away the power to just unilaterally impose tariffs away from the executive branch. Elizabeth Warren has introduced legislation for just that. It's obviously not a good strategy. It allows you to have a dumb person in there who fucks up everybody's businesses. I think we've got to, at the end of this, we're going to have to look at significant changes. And that's why we can't roll out another Joe Biden or Josh Shapiro or Gavin Newsom. We're going to have to go far more radical, people who are willing to make substantial changes and limit their own executive power. We need to hire somebody that's going to be president who's 100% okay with the executive branch losing power. They can't step in there and be like, well, Trump had this power, so I should have this power. They're going to have to go along and say, like, here's some glaring weaknesses we have in our Constitution. That's one thing I'll say about Trump is he's doing a good job exposing where our Constitution is weak. I'll give him credit for that. All right. Which one was that? All right, is it this one? Did I play this one already? All right, this is our last Mitt Romney. When he was asked if he would vote for Trump over Biden before Biden stepped down.
Would you vote for Donald Trump over Joe Biden?
No, absolutely not. I mean, for me, there are two factors in deciding who I want to have as the leader of my country and the person who is the example of the president for my kids and my grandkids. One is their position and policies. And on foreign policy, I'm not aligned with Donald Trump, at least as I understand his policy. On domestic policy, yeah, I align with many of his domestic policies. But there's another dimension besides policy, and that's character. And I think what America is as a nation, what has allowed us to be the most powerful nation on earth and the leader of the earth, is the character of the people who have been our leaders, past presidents, but also mothers, fathers, church leaders.
Hey guys, cue the MAGA in the chat, seeing the CNN logo and freaking the fuck out. Catch that on your bingo card. Everybody check off your bingo card. MAGA in the chat sees CNN and goes, CNN, I don't listen.
University presidents and so forth. Having a president who is so defaulted of character would have an enormous impact on the character of America. And for me, that's the primary consideration.
Yeah. Character would be a good thing to look at. Remember, Andrew Schultz is like, I don't care about character. I don't care about legislating. I just like that the guy cheated on all his wives. I just like that he got his dick sucked. Remember, that's the important part. I'm going to jump over to some Fox News shit. I just watching Republicans do their thing. But I found this clip. I had forgotten all about this. This caused some problems at the time. This is 2023. This is Ann Coulter. She was on Timcast, who asked that first question. Remember what Ann Coulter, even old Ann Coulter, Fox News Ann Coulter, had to say about Donald Trump?
I mean, I did write In Trump We Trust. And I was introducing him at rallies 2 weeks after he announced out in Iowa and elsewhere. And look, if you read In Trump We Trust, I wouldn't take back a single word of it. In fact, I've given it to certain Republican presidential candidates. I want to read it saying, but you actually have to do it. Because the 2016 campaign, I think, was the greatest presidential campaign in world history. But in the book, I make it very clear he's an awful person. He's a con man. He's a grifter.
I said Gavin shouldn't be president, Gus. Words are hard. I don't want Gavin Newsom to be president. I said he shouldn't be president. Love you, Gus.
Horrible, tacky vulgarian. Got all that. But he's the only one offering us this basket of issues I want to vote on. Yeah. Obviously, number one, immigration. Number 2, 3, and 4, immigration and the wall. Bringing trade back, this worship of free trade, and no more stupid wars. Those were like the 3 biggest things. And he supported things like, gun rights very strongly. And then, he gets into office and starts talking about amnestying the Dreamers. They're the ones I want to deport first because they're bossy and obnoxious.
That's like the Republican. I don't like the Dreamers because they're bossy and obnoxious. Get them out of our country. Get these children who immigrated here out of our country because they want to stay here, and I don't like that they want to stay here.
At least, you catch another illegal alien and they say, okay, you got me. No, Dreamers, how dare you not give me amnesty? So Trump gets elected, doesn't build the wall, builds 33 miles, 6 months before the election. It's a 2,000-mile border. He takes Kim Kardashian, noted criminologist, to push through laws releasing criminals. That's a huge hit with Americans, especially after 2020. That's great. Yeah,
well, he's always known how to be a celebrity, right? Like that reminded me of the reality TV show aspect of Trump, right? He knew.
I think you're giving him more. I don't even think it's knowing how to be. I think he's a narcissistic. I didn't read. The one thing I didn't know when I wrote In Trump We Trust is how profoundly stupid he is. I made very clear in the
this is the most baffling part about it. I honestly don't know how people listen to him, read a transcript. He is profoundly stupid. He is stupid on a level that is so beyond people's comprehension that they don't know that he's stupid. Like, he's so confident in his stupidity that people don't know he's stupid. If the least educated people in America consistently find themselves agreeing with you, and the most educated people in America consistently find themselves disagreeing with you, you're probably not that bright. If your entire following has to resort to saying, "Oh, common sense," then maybe you're not that bright. If Donald Trump is saying things that are common sense, then I guess he's really not that bright. There's nothing uncommon about him, is there? Well, it's just common sense. Yeah, no, it's simple. And it's void of a plan. It's void of facts. It's void of data. It's a feeling. Donald Trump has the same feelings that you have, and he articulates those feelings consistently. And because you agree with his feelings, you think he's saying something intelligent. He is, as Ann Coulter said, I'm agreeing with Mitt Romney and Ann Coulter today. He is profoundly stupid.
But he is. I made very clear in the book the only thing he could do, we will forgive him for anything. And I defended him the day after the Access Hollywood, pussy grab.
That's incredible. Guys, can we all look at Joe real quick? Common sense is not common. It just uses the word common for no fucking reason. Joe, that's what common sense is. It is the sense of the commoner. It is common to find people with that sensibility. That's why the word common is in common sense. This is why you think Trump is smart, though, because you confidently say dumb shit like that. You confidently common sense is not common. That's by definition it has to be. Common sense can only be common. That's why the word common is in there. It's describing the type of sense.
Grabbing tape came out. I was giving a speech before like 5,000 people in California up in farmland, and I was pedal to the metal defending him. And I said, we'll forgive him for anything, but unless you betray us on immigration. Yeah. Oh, and guess what he did? You can't do every campaign rally, build the wall, build the wall.
That's a pretty common Republican refrain. We will forgive you for anything as long as you are cruel to immigrants. And what she's upset about, and what some Republicans are upset about, is the lack of cruelty to immigrants. That's why they like what's happening right now, but not going far enough about on Jewish people. Certainly not going far enough. Like, why not throw all? In fact, how many people last night said everybody who is here illegally should be thrown in that El Salvadoran prison? Just throw everybody in prison if you come here illegally. The one issue she has with Trump is he's not quite cruel enough. I'll forgive you for anything that you do as long as you are really cruel towards immigrants.
Build the wall. and then not build the wall and expect to get reelected.
Well, that was the best part of your Twitter account for me for a long time was your how many days, like no progress on the wall.
Border wall updates.
Yeah. And you were intense about it. You were one of the most vocal people keeping his feet to the fire on the border wall.
Yeah, that works.
It didn't. Look, you fought a good fight here. I mean, you can't say that you didn't try.
Guys, stop it. These have to be bot accounts. This has to be. People who pretend to be intelligent use. Good Lord, Dad MF. People who pretend to be intelligent are the ones who use critical thinking during a common sense situation. When is critical thinking the wrong way? When is critical thinking ever bad? Religion, basically, cults. The only place that you don't want critical thinking is like if you're trying to feel emotion. So if you're going to church, if you're joining a cult, perhaps if you're watching a movie, like I struggle. I think one of the reasons I've always struggled with sci-fi is like I'm a very critical thinker. I analyze things. That's part of it's why I'm not that fun all the time. So if I remember watching Avatar when that first came out and everybody loving it. And to me, it was just so far from reality that I just don't enjoy things like that. If it's far removed from what I think is reality, I just don't really have a lot of time for it. So like I'm not the best. I'm not great like with video games. Art isn't something that really appeals to me. Music does. I grew up in a musical family. And I don't think you have to be that critical to enjoy music. That's the beauty of it. But yeah, critical thinking is appropriate in every scenario in politics. In fact, common sense should never be something that's discussed. Common sense is thought stopping. It's a way for it's like the new way to be like period, point blank, end of sentence. That's what common sense is now. Common sense is a phrase that you use when you can't explain what the fuck you're talking about. Why can't you use different pronouns? It's common sense. All right. Why shouldn't we slap 200% tariffs on China? It's common sense. Okay, so it's you not having an answer, and then your party and your president has given you this excuse. It's okay if you don't know the answer. Just rely on your feelings. That's better for us anyways. We just can control you through your feelings. And that's what they do. It's what Ann Coulter just pointed out there. We will forgive you of anything as long as you're cruel to immigrants. M. Scott says critical thinking is part of the woke mind virus. That's correct. That's why you guys are staying away from it. I see now. You don't want to get that mind virus. Heather said, could one of these Trump'll fucks explain what the plan is? We know Trump doesn't know, so who does? Yeah, that's a good question. Who does know the plan? If one of you guys knows the plan, let us know. We would love to be updated on what your guys' plan is here. Let's see. That. All right. And Johnny said, I didn't say who manipulated, just that it was. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. I'm with you there, Johnny. Yeah, probably. Yeah, people definitely manipulated the market. I see what you're saying. Yeah. I agree with you there. All right. This is Tammy Bruce. Tammy Bruce is the State Department spokesperson. We've seen her. I did. She went on Fox News, and spends like the first 2 minutes denouncing this New York Times article that reported about Trump's plans to slash the State Department and cut a bunch of jobs at the State Department. And this is a 2 minute and 59-second video. The first 2 minutes, she's just going to trash this article, and I want you to listen.
Is fake. This is a situation, though, not only do they fall victim to another hoax, but they left a message for the State Department at 2:30 in the morning on Easter saying, do you want to comment? What do you think of this? Is this real? You
can see down here in the ticker, the New York Times article said that the Trump administration is drafting an order to drastically overhaul the State Department. That's the article. That's what they reported. Then they reached out to the campaign and said, do you want to comment on this? She's upset it's 2:30 in the morning, but obviously, like, we're just going to smear the New York Times for this obviously fake article about the Trump administration drafting an order to overhaul the State Department.
It's an outrageous offense to the nature of the ethics of trying to be able to at least confirm what it is they have. They seem to have had no interest in confirming this document. It is a number of other entities had this document that didn't go with it because it seemed not real, or at least they couldn't confirm. And yet the New York Times decided that reaching out at 2:30 in the morning on Easter morning was going to be enough, and giving 90 minutes for a response. It is an outrageous dynamic. So it's one thing to fall victim to a hoax. And
It's
it
a
is
hoax.
another thing to not necessarily care or to want to move to get the correct information. Clearly, we would love to be able to respond and to have made it clear to the New York Times that this was not true. But they really didn't give us the chance to do that, and that speaks volumes. So I would say, once again, when we're dealing with the nature of legacy media, and now as the spokesperson, I know a lot of media who are serious, who care about their jobs, but this then engenders a kind of fear that is an awful dynamic when we are going through, as we know through President Trump, and what the American people want is a government that is leaner and more nimble. Of course, the government is not a bunch of hashtags. It's about people. And so, we can't.
Which is why we fire them so often, because it's about the people. Okay, we're at a minute 37, trashing the New York Times. They wouldn't even. Of course, we're not cutting the State Department. Of course, fuck the New York Times. These guys are disgusting.
Care about that, and changes have happened and will continue to happen, but this just is an outrageous abuse of the influence that the New York Times has. But Americans should know.
I think this interview was this morning. It could have been yesterday morning.
That what it is they're willing to do to just get clicks or to get discussed on television. It's outrageous, and the State Department will be responding in a certain.
Look at the people. Look, Trump's doing an amazing job. Yeah, as soon as Trump admitted that he lost to China, the stock market went back up. Incredible stuff, Trump. Incredible stuff. You guys, it's crazy. But back to this, New York Times, they're dog shit. They ran this unsubstantiated story about us cutting at the State Department. Fuck the New York Times.
And certainly my office will, because of what this ended up being.
I'm so glad that you've come on to talk about that this morning, Maria. Excuse me, Tammy. I just called you Maria. Real quick before you go, though, I've got like 30 seconds,
Yes.
Tammy.
Yes.
But will we see some restructuring at the State Department? I mean, I know that all the agencies are looking at cost reductions.
Well, look, there's an executive order from President Trump. We all are working on that. It is, again, why the president was elected, the nature of what we're committed to. This is a government that is breaking under its own weight. It is dysfunctional. I'm seeing it personally. Structurally, it becomes impossible. But then, of course, it's difficult. It's difficult to do restructuring, but it's difficult because we have to do it.
So they're doing it. It's 3-minute video. The first 2 minutes is spent trashing the New York Times for reporting this obviously fake story. And then they're like, so are you cutting? Yeah, we're cutting.
And this is the painful part. We understand that, but we also know that in order for the government to continue to be the greatest government in the world, for the greatest country, we have to take seriously what's happened to it. And the abuse.
Yeah. These fuckers at the New York Times lying all the time. All right, so they said, but are you cutting? Yeah, we're gonna cut. Yeah, we're gonna be cutting here. That's your party, guys. I don't know what to tell you. Like they're so programmed to just like any negative news, they just smear. They just smeared the New York Times for 2 minutes over a story they reported that's true. I don't know what to do about that. Here's some cool polling I saw this morning. This made me happy. This is from the Economist YouGov poll. The 48th question in the poll said, should Kilmar Abrego Garcia be returned to the United States? The Trump administration recently deported Kilmar Abrego Garcia to El Salvador despite a court order prohibiting his deportation. Do you believe Trump should bring Abrego Garcia back to the United States? 50% say yes, 28% say no. So why don't we bring him back? Do you want to look here? If you do want to do it by party affiliation, liberals 87% say yes, moderates 52% say yes, 17% of conservatives. Now most of you guys say you're not conservative, so I don't know who would fall here, but looks like most people think that Abrego Garcia should be brought back. Hell no. Hell no, fuck that. We don't do due process. Fuck due process, says MAGA in the chat. We don't want people to have court cases. We just want to be able to deport immigrants for no fucking reason. Here's Tom Homan. And sorry in advance, this is not the audio that is the problem. It's that Tom Homan has never been properly taught how to speak and always sounds like he just ate a giant spoonful of peanut butter before he talks. So before we criticize my computer, the problem with this audio is that Tom Homan is a mushmouth.
What is your response to the judge accusing the administration of bad faith and willful noncompliance?
Bad faith. We removed an MS-13 gang member.
No, you didn't.
Public safety threat.
Not a public safety threat.
Wife beater.
Maybe.
Designated terrorist from the
True.
United States. He's home. He's a citizen of El Salvador, a native El Salvador, who had due process despite what you're hearing. But
no, he didn't. And this is the same argument that I had to have with fucking Republicans all night last night. Tom Homan's going to do the same shit that they did. He went to court for other times. And so if you've been to court ever before, you've had due process. So even though, and just so we're clear on this, Abrego Garcia has gone to court multiple times. He had a deportation order. Then he was granted a stay because of the accusations of his affiliation with MS-13. Whether those accusations are true or not doesn't really matter in this case. A stay was given. He was allowed to stay because he was named as an affiliate of MS-13, so it was not safe for him to be deported to El Salvador. Now, if you are going to then remove that order and send him to El Salvador, he is entitled to a hearing. And I think it's within like 30 days. I think you have to request a hearing within 30 days. What Tom Homan and ICE did is they removed that protection and then they took him to El Salvador before the 30-day guarantee that he has to request a hearing. That is the due process that he was not given. And they did not deport him. They imprisoned him. They did not put him in El Salvador. They did not say, oh, here you go back to your home country, and El Salvador arrested him and threw him in prison. El Salvador did not put him in prison. We said, will you hold him in prison for us? Because we have said that he's a criminal. We have designated him a member of a terrorist organization. Now, in what world can you accuse somebody of being a terrorist and they get life imprisonment? And that's it. Just an accusation of being a terrorist. In what world is that due process? Homan's going to say what all of you are saying. And for the Republicans here, like, if you just don't mind being wrong, that's fine. But if you care about getting something right, you have to understand there should have been 3 court cases. There were 2. They skipped the 3rd one, and they're saying that he had due process from those other 2 court cases. He did get due process in those other 2 court cases. He did not get due process now. He had 30 days. I'm pretty sure it's 30 days. If I have the days wrong, somebody correct me on that. I'm fairly certain it's 30 days he has to make his claim, and he never had that opportunity. So when people say, what's going to happen if you bring him back? He's going to get due process. And at the end of that due process, he's going to make his case, and they might send him back to El Salvador. But if they were to return him to El Salvador, they would not return him to the prison. They would return him to the country, right? Unless now you're going to go and you're going to have another case where you're going to accuse him, you're going to convict him of being a member of a terrorist organization, in which case then, I mean, it's a gray area. We're not sure if I don't think that the United States has the right to take somebody and imprison them in a foreign country. The Supreme Court's going to have to rule on that. That part's a gray area, though. They're really testing this, but he has not received due process. And Tom Homan, which is crazy, every time Tom Homan is asked about due process and asked about court proceedings, he says the same thing. I'm not an expert. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know anything about that. I'm just doing my job. But now he's confidently the same guy in every interview who says, I don't even understand any of that shit. It's not my job. Now confidently is saying, oh, he did get due process.
Had due process despite what you're hearing, been ordered removed by 2 separate immigration judges. The best that could happen for him if he actually gave back to the United States, he would be detained and removed again. because he hasn't ordered deportation. And what people don't talk about, the withholding order they keep saying was the mistake or oversight, was issued years ago under different circumstances.
Those other court cases were issued years ago under different circumstances too. That was due process. However, if you remove the withholding order, he gets the opportunity to fight against the withholding order. That's just our law. That's just the way that it is. And I understand that a lot of people don't like immigrants, but what you're advocating for in not bringing him back is advocating the removal of due process. And you're saying that the president should be able to do whatever the fuck the president wants, including imprison somebody. And I asked MJ this about 15 times, and MJ won't answer it, and Republicans won't answer this. If you can take somebody like Kilmar Abrego Garcia, you can kidnap him, deport him to El Salvador, kidnapping him and put him in a prison in El Salvador. And then when the Supreme Court says you violated the law, you must bring him back, and you say, sorry, we can't. He's out of our hands now. It's up to the El Salvadoran government. Why can't you do that to me? Why can't you do it to any of you? Why can't we take you, kidnap you in the middle of the night, and throw you in a prison in El Salvador? Because ultimately what would happen, my lawyers would go petition. This would go to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court would say, no, you have no right to send an American citizen to an El Salvadoran jail. And then Trump would say the exact same thing. Well, sorry, we don't have him anymore. You're going to have to talk to Bukele. And Bukele would say, I can't because Trump told me that he was a terrorist. He's paying me to keep this guy here. Trump told me that RTP was a terrorist. And so I can't send him back in because your government has designated him a terrorist. So if I try and bring him back in, now you're going to accuse me of smuggling in a terrorist. There is no difference here. If he can do it to Abrego Garcia, he can do it to anybody. And I'm not saying that he will do it to anybody. What I'm saying is that if you ignore the law, then our law doesn't fucking matter. If you tell the Supreme Court, fuck you, then what's the point of a Supreme Court? What's the point of any of this? What's the point of checks and balances if we don't follow the checks and balances? This is the crisis of the Constitution. And Republicans want to make this about Abrego Garcia. They want to bring up the tattoos. They want to bring up the court records. They want to bring up the accusations from his wife. That's fine. That should all be in court. But the one thing you guys won't fucking talk about is that the President of the United States told the Supreme Court no. That's the one part none of you will ever talk about. Every time we get to this stage of the conversation, all last night, and it's in the comments today, every time we get to the stage of the conversation where we say, do you think the president should be able to tell the Supreme Court no, you change the subject. None of you want to admit that your guy just told the Supreme Court no. He said, no thanks to the Constitution. No thanks, checks and balances. I'm just going to do what I want to do. That's the part we can't get you guys to address. And that's the part that nobody on your side of the aisle will address. Every news clip we're going to show here, every time this is brought up, they all do the same shit. They all talk about, oh, he's a bad guy. Maybe he's a bad guy. Probably. I'll say probably a bad guy. I don't think there's a lot of women who are going to make multiple accusations of their husband beating them up just for the fuck of it. I just don't. I'm going to tend to believe that his wife was telling the truth when she said he was abusive. That doesn't mean you don't do due process. That doesn't mean you get to ignore the Supreme Court. And that's the disconnect we have here. And when Trump talks about homegrowns are next, yeah, there's a lot of people who should worry. There's a lot of people who should worry that this government, this administration does not care what the Supreme Court says. Why do we have them then? I don't know why we can't find commonplace here.
I'll let DOJ argue this in court, but I think we remove the public safety threat, gang member, designated terrorists from the United States who have been ordered deported twice by a federal judge. I think I got plenty of due process. He got more due process than Lake and Riley got.
No, she didn't commit a crime. Do we understand that this is such a dumb fucking argument? If you are murdered, You didn't commit a crime. There's a due process is if you are accused of a crime and you get to go defend yourself. If you are murdered, the person who murders you gets due process. This argument is fucking moronic. Who did get due process in Laken Riley's murder trial? The murderer. Because in this country, we believe in due process. There was due process in the Laken Riley trial, but again, he's an idiot. He tells you all the time he doesn't understand the law, and he clearly doesn't understand the law. Because if just saying, did Laken Riley get due process, shows that you don't understand what due process is. Due process is when you're accused of a crime, not when you're dead. If the government killed Laken Riley, then you would say she did not get due process. If the government took Laken Riley and threw her in prison without a trial, then you would say Laken Riley didn't get due process. But due process was served in Laken Riley's killer. And I'm trying to remember, is it Marin? Is that the Maryland lady's name that was murdered as well? Same thing. Her killer got due process. So we're ironically, like, we love that these killers are getting due process. We love the guilty verdict. We love the death penalty. But then when somebody who didn't murder anybody is just thrown in prison without a trial, we're like, yeah, we like that. Tim said, thank you, Tim. Appreciate that donation there. Seventh Sacraments of Health. That's quite a name. All right. On to the next. This is Representative Yasamin Ansari. She went on with Laura Ingraham on Fox News and was pressed repeatedly. And this is why we have a hard time having this discussion as a country right now. Because one side of the aisle currently, and I mean one side of the aisle because independents are firmly in the camp of due process. One side of the aisle, every time we get close to having this discussion about did Abrego Garcia, was he stripped of due process? Was he not given due process? All they want to do is deflect and talk about other victims, and they want to justify why they're not giving him due process. Shout out to Yasamin, what was the last name again? Ansari, for doing her best not to let Laura Ingraham consistently change the subject.
Before we go, Congresswoman, also in Maryland, I know American citizens and crimes committed against them might not be a top priority. It is for this show. An illegal alien from Guatemala was just charged with his girlfriend's murder in Maryland, same state, of course, Mr. Abrego Garcia is from. She was missing for 2 weeks, mother of 2 young kids. Police found her buried in a forest. Do you know about this story? Do your constituents care about those victims? And do you intend on calling that family, since Maryland residents are obviously a concern in some way, shape, or form for you and all the people of your state?
Again, this is not a crime perpetuated on the victim by the government. She works for the government. Our government committed a crime, stripped a person in our country who has due process, stripped them of due process, and all they want to do is deflect. The person in that state, in Maryland, was murdered, and her killer is going to get due process while they're arguing that Abrego Garcia should not get due process.
I am appalled by any violence that takes place in this country. As a former city official, I have a very strong pro-public safety record, and that's why I believe in the rule of law, and that's why this case is so important. I think these questions are a distraction from the main issue, which is that Donald Trump is defying the Supreme Court of the United States, and every American should be concerned about this.
Just so we're clear, the United States Constitution does not say that you must be a citizen to get due process. In fact, it has ruled multiple times that people who are not citizens are entitled to the exact same due process you and I are. My right to due process is no different than anybody else that is physically in this country. Everybody that is physically in this country has due process. Whether you are here legally or illegally, you can say that they don't have due process all you want, but again, the Supreme Court disagrees with you. They've ruled on this over and over and over again.
Congresswoman, I know you can't mean that, and I'm not trying to play gotcha here. I know you don't
Every
mean
American,
that American
every
citizens
American should
are distractions.
Thanks, Charles.
No,
victims aren't
you are
distractions.
changing the subject. Today we are here to talk about the lack of due process for an individual who was illegally deported from this country. That is the subject of this
But you have
interview.
not,
Any other act of violence.
But Congresswoman, I've given you just so everyone understands.
Appalling.
Yeah, well, the violence committed by illegal immigrants against innocent Americans and legal immigrants has been appalling.
It is devastating.
Absolutely appalling.
Any violence,
and I wish there was one moment where
in this
Democrats
country is
acted like they
appalling.
cared about that. Well,
We
apparently it's all
absolutely
collateral
do care
damage
about
to
that, Laura,
Democrats
but right now
who sat
we are
by with the
worried
open
about-
border. Yeah.
Now we are worried about
were
the
you worried
constitutional
about the
crisis.
Anything but anything. Laura Ingraham is scrambling anything to not address the fact that this person has the right to due process. Anything. Anything. It's just whataboutism, 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 whataboutism. When is a Republican going to explain why Abrego Garcia isn't entitled to due process? And if you think Abrego Garcia got due process, then why did the Supreme Court rule 9-0? And if the Supreme Court is wrong and we can just say that they're wrong, then what the fuck is the point of the Supreme Court? Do you see the problem with this argument? Is you might disagree with the Supreme Court. I disagree with the Supreme Court all the time. But that's how our system works. There are no right or wrong answers. The Supreme Court interprets the law. That's their job. That's why they exist. So if the Supreme Court says you must give this person due process and you say no, then you don't give a fuck about the Constitution. You're just like, no, I know better than the Supreme Court, and we should fundamentally undo the Constitution because I think I'm right. And that's the problem I have with you guys. And that's why we say you're a cult. That's why we say you're fascists. Because when you don't get your way, you are okay undoing the Constitution. Oh, well, we don't like this, and so fuck the Supreme Court. We have no use for the Supreme Court anymore. That's why we call you fascist. That's fascism. That's authoritarianism. That's anti-democracy. It's anti-American. It is a hostile government takeover. It's a coup. If you cannot say that you are not a coup, that you are not fascist, that you're not authoritarian, while also ignoring the Supreme Court repeatedly. You can't have it both ways. Unless but if you're dumb and they tell you, oh, this is real patriotism. That's where we're at. You guys don't care about, you don't give a flying fuck about the Constitution anymore. And rightfully so. Like, one of the biggest problems with one of the things that Democrats get criticized for a lot now is like, you guys always play by the rules. Republicans don't play by the rules. They say, I don't give a fuck about the Constitution. But the reality is we recognize that Constitution is only as strong as people's willingness to adhere to it. And you guys have given that all up for Donald Trump. We're not doing Constitution anymore because Donald Trump.
Right. Oh, the Constitution?
We are worried about the constitutional crisis and the lack of this president following the Supreme Court. I'm sure you believe in the Supreme Court and you believe in the rule of law.
Here comes the whataboutism. See what I mean? Every fucking time. Will she address due process? No. We're worried about the Supreme Court's ruling, and they said they need due process. Is she going to address that? No. She's going to do a whataboutism.
Were you worried when... I know this is the progressive way of dealing with interviews where you just, I'm not trying to talk over you. I'm actually trying to get a question answered. I asked you a simple question. What process is due Mr. Abrego Garcia in the United States that you believe he has not received or could receive if he's undeported,
Thanks,
which
Mary.
is the Democrats' priority? Undeport him, bring him back here. What process do you want him to receive that would make you happy and feel good? Could he ever be deported?
It's very clear. The Supreme Court says return him, and in court we can have a discussion about what action.
She just answered it. That's the right answer. Constitutionally, the court said he has due process. What due process? The right to a trial. He had a 30-day window in which he could request a trial. He was not granted the ability to even request a trial. That's the answer. You can't answer that. She did answer it. Laura Ingraham's too in her feelings to understand what the answer is. And what is the Republican position? Your position, every Republican that's here, every MAGA that's here, every Trump supporter that's here, your position is Donald Trump is above the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court can't tell him to do anything. He is the law. He is king. That's your position.
Should be taken.
No.
Thanks,
Laura,
Jody.
This administration admitted they made a mistake.
He doesn't matter to you.
This administration admitted that they made a mistake
I don't think he
in
matters
deporting
to you.
Mr. Garcia.
I think
this is a fact,
political.
Laura.
Oh, now it doesn't matter to you. Who fucking cares if it matters to her? What if she is a phony? What if she's a complete and total phony and she doesn't give a single solitary fuck about Abrego Garcia? I'm going to be honest. I don't care about Abrego Garcia. I don't know Abrego Garcia. And from everything I know about Abrego Garcia, honestly, he kind of sounds like a scumbag. I don't think he's a very good guy. And I think, honestly, he should probably be deported. I think that he should hear his case. His case should be heard. I don't know if he should be here. If the stuff that they're saying about him is true, if they can verify that stuff in court, I think he should be deported. I just think he should have due process. And they don't want to hear that. You guys don't want to hear that. You want our position to be something else so that your position doesn't sound fucking insane. You want my position to be Abrego Garcia is a good guy and deserves to be here and never be deported. And that's not my position, and it's not any of our positions. In fact, Van Hollen, who went and met with him, said specifically, I'm not taking a position on Abrego Garcia, the person. I think he deserves due process. We recognize how important due process is. I have a friend right now. I have a friend who somebody tried to murder. That person is on trial for murder for the third time right now. The last thing I wanted to happen to that woman was for her to just be killed. I wanted her to sit through court. I want due process. She gets due process. She's deserved due process. She killed her own children. She killed her own husband. She killed somebody else's spouse, and she tried to kill one of my best friends in the world, and she deserves it. She's a much worse person than Abrego Garcia. She needs due process. Due process is how we handle things in this country. So the Republicans want you to focus on this. And I would just say, if you get in this debate, don't debate whether or not Abrego Garcia is a good person. He's probably not. He doesn't seem to be a very good person. The argument is, can the executive branch suspend due process, and when they are corrected by the proper checks, which is the Supreme Court, can they tell the Supreme Court no? And Republicans refuse to answer this question. They refuse to address this point because they are cowards. They are all afraid of Donald Trump. They are all afraid of crossing this administration. That's why. And the people that are in the chat that don't want to admit it, you're just afraid that you'll lose your friends because you've all sold your souls to Donald Trump. It's Trump or nothing. And that's where we're at in this country, where you guys are saying, we're at a point in this country where you're saying, fuck the Constitution, openly, fuck the Constitution. We do not care.
You're not sticking to the facts of the case.
Yeah, there's the end of Laura Ingraham. Every day, how many times do we have to invite Republicans up here every single day to explain this, and then they don't come up? Did I miss any there? I got Jody. Aaron said he saw 17 judges. He had due process. No, he didn't, Aaron. How many more times do we have to explain this? Miss Terry said, can you tell Jay I sent him a $2 pay from Cash App and it wouldn't let me attach a message? Please tell him the message is, do you think the Supreme Court realizes they created a monster? Yeah. Yeah, I think that was pretty clear when Trump addressed Congress. They know what they've done. And I think that they gave Trump way too much deference. A lot of people do this. The big mistake with Trump is believing that, like, if you give him an inch, that's all he'll take. No matter how much leeway you give Trump, he will take more. It's what he does. He's an authoritarian. He's a wannabe dictator. If you said right now, if the party said right now, hey, you're king, he would be king. He would be like, great, finally, you guys did it. For anybody who doesn't understand due process, B,
hey, this is just a public service
B sending this to me.
This is the dividing line between
civil. I hate how this does this. TikTok is a terrible app. This is just a public Johnster Truck. Just he's a history and law. I think he has a law degree. He's now a history teacher. Here's him explaining due process. This was a great explanation, so we're going to use it.
Service announcement, but the dividing line between
I don't know where he got 17 judges either, but he didn't have due process.
Civilization and not civilization is due process of law. When you read the founders, right? The founders back in the day did that cool thing where they built a country and threw off the monarchy. You guys remember them. So they were concerned about mob rule. And that has often been renegotiated in the American consciousness to be an anti-democratic position. That if you get all the stupids together and they shout a lot, they can make stupid decisions as a unit. And that's not what mob rule actually is. Mob rule is the ability to enforce justice by violence through the will and emotions of the crowd without guaranteeing rights for the accused. Mob rule was the problem that Jefferson had with Greek democracy. But it wasn't that the pores all got together and made decisions about stuff. That's not what mob rule is. Mob rule in Greek democracy was that the community could come together and vote to ostracize people. Just put little chips in a bucket, and if your chip got put in the bucket enough times, then you have to go live in the woods. And that person doesn't get due process. They just get kicked out. It means when you go back to frontier living or in rural towns in the American South particularly, when communities did not have access to court systems and formal processes of law, and they had a problem either with real or imagined crime, with the absence of a court that provided due process, meaning the accused had the chance to defend themselves and get represented in court and have rights guaranteed to them, then the community, when they had a problem with that person, they would just kidnap them and hurt them about it. There is this bulwark of civilization between us and the animals, and we mistake ourselves when we pretend that that bulwark of civilization is like buildings or trains or a car or whatever. The bulwark of civilization between us and animals is due process of law, because it stands between a primal desire for justice or retribution and the accused, so that they have a chance to represent themselves, they have a chance to receive fair punishment that has been democratically decided as the fair punishment for the thing, and it can apply the same across the board to everybody. And when we build systems, or rather ignore systems, such that due process goes away, civilization goes right out the door with it.
Let me just help the MAGA. I mean, the crash out is unbelievable. Whoever said that, it's unbelievable. Look, you saying that if you are here illegally, you lose due process is a very silly and dangerous thing to say. Because the Supreme Court has ruled that anybody physically here in the United States has due process, if you are going to take the stand that if you are doing something illegal, like if you're here illegally, if you're breaking the law, that you no longer get due process, then you're saying that you no longer get due process if you break the law. So, for example, crossing the border in most cases is a misdemeanor, and the fine is similar to that of a traffic ticket. So are you saying that if you have received a traffic ticket and then somebody accuses you of a murder that you did not commit, that you do not deserve due process because you broke the law when you were speeding? Of course you wouldn't think that. Of course not. All you're doing is justifying the mistreatment of a person because that person is causing Donald Trump pain. That person is causing this administration to look incompetent. And so you dehumanize and you invalidate their rights as a human being to be to go in front of a court. And you're honestly, I mean, whatever you want to say, let's just say that your way is true. Let's just say that if you're here illegally, you don't have due process. Now what you're saying is that anybody who comes to the United States illegally should be thrown in prison for life. That is a nasty position to take, especially with Abrego Garcia, because Abrego Garcia, part of his previous due process was our government, Trump's administration, by the way, refusing to deport him and instead granting him a stay, saying you can stay here. And if we ever change that rule, it was explained to him, if we ever change the rule, if we ever say that you're no longer going to be protected by this order and that you can be deported to El Salvador, you have a small window of time in which you can fight it. And I think it's 30 days. You have this small window of time, 30 days, where you can fight it. So that was the impression that he was left with. That's the law. And then they deported it. Pollock said, yes, cry about it. No, dude, I just think you're gross. I think you're a dog. I think that makes you a pretty shitty human being. And I think that Trump speaks to the shittiest among us. The people most devoid of character, the people most devoid of compassion, the people most devoid of rational thinking, the people most devoid of critical thinking, the people most devoid of the ability to see the long-term effects of eliminating due process. I think that you're dumb and that you're sick, and that's it. Like, I just think you're disgusting people. I think that if you take that position, that somebody should be deported and imprisoned for life on an unproved accusation, then you suck. I just think you suck. And I don't actually think it's your real position. I think you're just a cuck to Donald Trump, and so you're defending it because you want to defend Donald Trump and you don't like me. But that's a fucked position, and that puts you in the same position as every Nazi in Germany. Every Nazi that stood by and watched people be deported and imprisoned without due process, you are no different than them. You are exactly the same as them. The difference comes when the genocide happens, and I've got questions about that, because now we know 75% of the people who ICE has removed and imprisoned, they don't even have a criminal record. There's not even an accusation. 75% of the people who have been thrown in prison, we don't even know of the crime that they committed. We're now losing people. We have no idea where people are. People are abducted, we lose them. We're detaining and imprisoning American citizens. We're just throwing them in jail. We're saying, oh, you don't have the proper documentation. I bet none of you have the proper documentation.
We've got a new subscriber.
It's not crying about it. I guess maybe it is. Yeah, sure. Maybe I'm emotional about the fact that this is where we are. Like I've worked my life, and I've been involved in politics my whole life on both sides of the aisle. Most of my life I was involved on your side of the aisle. And I'm old enough to remember George Bush, both senior and junior, and Ronald Reagan, and Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama, and John McCain. I'm old enough to remember all of them saying, like, due process matters. Immigrants are wonderful. Let's make our immigration system easier. Let's make it more fair. That used to be your party. You didn't become this cruel until Trump came around. And now the loudest, most disgusting people in your party are the ones with the soapbox and with the megaphone. And it's tough to watch. It is. It's sad. It's a very sad thing to see, this lack of empathy and sympathy. Amy Lynn said, could you imagine you were a 34-time felon and court said you could stay out of jail and pay a fine, then suddenly throws you in jail 2 years later and says boo-hoo? Pollock said, just because you follow your base level empathy like a dog or monkey doesn't mean we are immoral. You make all these assumptions. Not a citizen. You don't get the rights of one. Cry and assume more. Yes, you do. The Supreme Court disagrees with you, Pollock. That's the problem. I'm so sorry, random YouTube chatter, that I'm going to take it's the Supreme Court's job to rule. The Supreme Court has ruled that he has due process and that he must be given due process. Until you are on the Supreme Court, it doesn't fucking matter what you say. That's their job, to interpret the laws. And you're saying, fuck the Supreme Court, fuck the Constitution. That's my problem with you. You are immoral. You are. And you don't pretend you care about America. Don't pretend you care about the Constitution. You just like Trump. You're just in a cult. That's the reality. I appreciate the donation, though. Thank you very much for that. And I hope you stick around, and I hope you continue to have these conversations. I hope everybody continues to have these conversations. I don't want to hate. I don't want to argue all day about this. I would love to get into some real shit. I would love to get into some real policy stuff. But this administration seems hellbent on just stripping people of their rights every single day. Here's what I mentioned earlier. It's not just Abrego Garcia. We're fortunate that we know Abrego Garcia's name, but there are people whose names we are not hearing who we don't know where they are. They're just disappearing.
It's not just Kilmar Abrego Garcia. ICE is disappearing innocent people right here in New York City. Merwin Gutierrez, a Bronx man, 19 years old, originally from Venezuela, was detained by ICE in front of his home on February 24th. Today, he sits in a maximum security prison in El Salvador, a country he had never even previously visited. Merwin had no criminal record, no gang involvement, no tattoos. He came to this country following a legal process for seeking asylum. His family reports that when he was detained,
Tyler, Abrego Garcia was let in under Trump, and he was given protected status under Trump. So why would we blame Biden? If you notice those court orders, the due process that Abrego Garcia had was under Trump, and they chose not to deport him. They said that they should not deport him. That all happened under Trump. If you're going to do whataboutism, get your years right. These people, Trump, one of the last things Trump did on his way out the door was write an executive order giving protected status to Venezuelan immigrants, saying that because of our actions in Venezuela, these people should not be deported. He took time out of his day to protect Venezuelan immigrants who came here seeking asylum, people that you call illegal immigrants. Trump gave them this status. Trump protected Abrego Garcia. You can blame Biden all you want. This is a Trump thing.
one of the ICE agents acknowledged he wasn't the one they were looking for, yet still they took him. His family is frantically searching for answers on his current status, but they've been met with silence. Merwin, of course, has no access to a lawyer in the prison in El Salvador. What's happened to Merwin is hardly unique. ICE has detained thousands of people across the country, including some with legal residency, some even with citizenship. In the face of these tactics, community nonprofits in New York City are trying to make sure that people know their rights in case they're approached by ICE. And now the MAGA crowd is going after the very nonprofits who are offering these trainings. This week, threatening to take federal funding away from one prominent community nonprofit serving New York City's Asian American community. It's time to call out these tactics for what they are: authoritarianism. We have to fight back with everything we got. Because today it may be Kilmar or Merwin, but tomorrow it could be any of us.
I know you guys don't care, but yeah, we're just disappearing people. The history books will remember this so differently than you guys think. So very differently. The history books will remember this as an attempted fascist takeover. And I'm going to be honest here. I'm less afraid than I was. It's going to get worse before it gets better. But I do think that in America, we're lucky. In America, we're lucky that the first time we tried fascism was with the dumbest fucking president we've ever had. He is too goddamn dumb to pull it off. And he surrounded himself with dumb people. He's already backing down, and he will back down because Trump is, before all things Trump, before any of his other qualities, Donald Trump is first and foremost a powerful coward. He's a tremendous coward. He does not face the music. He doesn't admit that he's wrong. He never gets in real fights. He hides behind litigation all the time. He is an unbelievable coward. He is a whiny bitch coward. And so we're lucky. We're lucky that we didn't wind up with a Putin. We're lucky we didn't wind up with an Erdogan. We're lucky that we didn't wind up with an intelligent fascist. We got the dumbest fucking one ever to try. We're fortunate that way. And he's going to fuck up all along the way. And all the people that are still on board with him are also pretty goddamn dumb. That's why we're fortunate. It could have been a lot worse. We could have had a smart fascist. But thank God we didn't get that. Miss Terry, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate you very much. All right, let's get on this. Here's James Tallarico. Just for our Christians here in the chat, James Tallarico, always standing up against the fascist Christians and pointing out just reminders every day that this is not what Jesus would have done.
Christ says what we do for the least of these, we do for him. So where is Christ today? Christ is the immigrant, deported without due process. Christ is the senior, deprived of their Social Security benefits. Christ is the protester, kidnapped in an unmarked vehicle by plainclothes officers. Christ is the student, sitting in an overcrowded classroom in a defunded school. Sometimes I wonder, what would Jesus do?
Thanks, Jeff.
If he visited the Texas legislature? What would he say to me and my colleagues? I think he would tell us, "Depart from me, for I was hungry, and you cut my food stamps. I was sick, and you kicked me off Medicaid. I was a stranger, and you deported me and my family. I was in prison, and you wouldn't even pay for air conditioning. And then I think he would flip over our fancy desks on the floor of the Texas House and demand that we take care of all our neighbors, especially the least of these.
Amy Lynn said, my sister-in-law is an assistant district attorney. They're collecting evidence on this administration, and ICE took time to get the Nazis and will take time for this. Yeah, look, there's going to be a lot of people who wind up in jail. Think of how many people went to jail after the last Trump administration. People, when you get involved with Donald Trump, you go to jail. He doesn't. He gets to escape all accountability. But when you get involved with Donald Trump, you go to jail. That's how it works. He convinces you guys to commit crimes for him, and then you commit the crimes for him, and then you go to jail. That's how this works. He'll avoid it the rest of his life. Before we go, I do have to end pretty close to on time. I want to show you this last thing. It's a little bit unrelated, but I showed you guys the video of Nancy Mace in the drugstore or the makeup store the other day. So she went on Hannity to share her experience, which again, she claims this man was in her face, harassing her. He asked her one question, and she lost her ever-loving mind. So, of course, we have to take her onto Hannity. And remember a couple of things. One, Nancy Mace is an attention whore. Nancy Mace should not be a member of Congress. Nancy Mace needs to get some help. I don't think this is going to be popular with this audience, but Nancy Mace has been physically, mentally, and sexually assaulted. All in the time that she was a member of Congress. This is a person with severe PTSD who is afraid at every corner and who is lashing out at other people who make her feel unsafe because of what her ex-fiance did. This is a person who deserves sympathy for what she's gone through, and who is clearly lashing out, who clearly lives her life in a perpetual state of fear. And so when constituents come to her and ask her a question, she freaks out. And maybe there should probably be some grace there. I'm trying to give Nancy Mace some grace here, because that's a lot. That's a lot to deal with. At the same time, your job is to answer to your constituents. So if you are going through a time like this, in America, it should be okay for her to take some time off, get the help that she needs, recover from traumatic experiences. Hopefully she is getting some, but this is a person who is spiraling. And a lot of that, I'm not going to blame on her. I'm going to blame a lot of that on the fact that she was physically, mentally, and sexually abused by a scumbag, dirtbag ex-fiance. So before I shit on Nancy Mace, because I think that what she's doing is awful, but I do at least recognize that I do think this is a hurt person, and hurt people hurt people. And it appears that she's lashing out at everybody else, and she's trying to hurt everybody else because she's hurt.
All right, so it was probably the biggest viral video of the weekend. South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace posted this now infamous video online after a man who is allegedly one of her constituents confronted her while she was shopping. Take a look.
I do them every year.
Every year.
You want to keep going?
Do any more this
you want to keep going and keep harassing me? You could have gone to a dozen town halls last year.
I asked if you're doing any more this year. It was one simple question.
Yeah.
Are you doing a town
I've already done one. I'll do plenty more.
Any more this year? It was a simple question.
You're always invited.
Okay, sweet. Well,
and by the way, I voted for gay marriage twice.
That was so wild that she did that. By the way, I like gay people.
Saying it has everything to do with you.
Do you think everything about me has to do with gay marriage?
I do,
That's
absolutely.
Your first stance when you speak with me?
Because you people on the left are crazy.
So
you're absolutely crazy.
I'm absolutely
you are. And get out of my face.
You're insane.
Goodbye.
You're insane. You're gonna me and you're gonna be voted out so fast this year. I
I'm
can't
not.
wait for you to
I won by so much.
You're a disgrace to this state. That's what you are. You're a disgrace. I asked you a simple question, and you just to go on this tirade and tell me you.
Yeah.
On shopping, right? In a post on Facebook, the man in that video said in part that he won't apologize for speaking up or for publicly asking a politician to do her job. Here with her side of the story, Congresswoman Nancy Mace. Congresswoman, well, apparently you've had a very eventful weekend. Apparently there's another video I was just told you might have put up, but let's go to this video in particular. What happened? What was going on behind the scenes? And how did the issue of gay rights come up in that conversation?
Well, right. I just wanted some face wash. That was it. I went to the store. I had a little bit of time to myself on Saturday afternoon, want to go shopping like I do. I'm a normal person. I do my own grocery shopping. And this guy approached me, and I will tell you, I felt threatened. I felt harassed. And I will tell you, as someone who's experienced trauma in her life, and a lot of women will understand what I'm talking about, when some guy gets in your face and approaches you in the aggressive manner that he...
Again, not in her face. I understand why she thinks that any confrontation based on what she's dealt with is in your face, but this is just not a threatening posture. He's not in her face. He's 6 to 8 feet away.
He did, and you feel like you're in danger instinctively as women who've been through trauma, who've survived sexual assault, survived domestic abuse. You have two options. You can fight or you can flee. And Sean, I'm a fighter. And I've never...
They're trying to get my stream taken down. Mods, good luck. They're trying real hard to get the stream taken down right now.
Back down from a fight. I will stand my ground like any strong woman should. And I will tell you, this was the third incident I had last week alone. The incidences of threats, the threat of violence, the people coming up and harassing me in public has increased exponentially over the last 6 months since I came out, standing up against the trans community, standing up against men in women's dresses. And I just had an event at the University of South Carolina about an hour ago. I wrapped it up, and a man in a dress picked up a potted plant and acted like he was going to throw it against me. I just posted that video on Twitter. You can follow it at Nancy Mace.
I didn't see that one. I'll look for it. That was the end. I just wanted to get her explanation there. I'll look for that. I question her judgment. I think a lot of us question her judgment. I think that sometimes she thinks she's going to get a reaction that she's not going to get. She needs better advisors. I have no idea why she posted this video. She just needs better advisors, but here you go.
So here you go. Listen up. Nancy Mace is a nasty bitch. I would pay money to see Mace get fucking decked in the mouth. Nancy Mace is a literal cunt. Nancy Mace is a cunt. Happy Easter. That's the tweet. Nancy Mace is such a cunt. Useless piece of straight trash. Nancy Mace is a disgusting pig bitch. We need to bully this ugly bitch back to the closet she came out of. You're just a lying ass cunt. Nancy Mace, you're a dumb rat. Bitch. You're an absolute bitch. You whore. You're a piece of shit. Nancy Mace is a worthless cunt. You're a horrible excuse for a human. Fuck off, bitch. I sincerely hope that you and all the Trump people can go where you deserve, and that is straight to hell. Nancy, for someone with the bone structure of a fucking man, you should shut the fuck up sometimes. I want you to shut the fuck up. Nobody cares about you. I hope you have a fucking horrible life. Fuck you, bitch. Step down, you stupid ass white supremacist, racist, homophobic piece of trash. You're a disgrace. You're straight garbage. Nancy dumbass Mace. Heartless bitch. Burn in hell.
I'm not sure that had the impact that she wanted that to have. In fact, I'm fairly certain it did not have the impact that she wanted it to have. Push Pop said, Barron asked Trump, what was your favorite class in high school? Trump proudly responded, recess, son. He got kicked out of high school. He had to go to a military school. He's such a fucking prick. I don't know if you guys knew that. Trump was he was just always a little baby. And so he had to go to military school because he was such a prick in school. I didn't see let me see if I can find the Nancy Mace potted plant. Again, I have such a hard time with Nancy Mace because all of this is just so obvious. This is just an abused person. And now, like I said, hurt people. That's clearly what she's doing. Hold the line. All right, here's, I think, the video. I think here's the video. Let's see.
Okay, so even better.
I
Okay, so I would like for you to apologize because that is derogatory, and second of all...
Is tranny derogatory to you?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course
So,
the fuck it is.
Tranny. Yeah, tranny. If that's derogatory, you are good.
Wait, what? Wait, she said she picked it up and tried to throw it at her. Hold on. Sorry, I didn't know that was going to say that. It was a trigger warning. I apologize. She didn't try and throw it at her? What are we talking about?
If that's derogatory, you are good.
What are we talking about? What are we talking about here? Keisha, she was abused. I don't know what to tell you. You should look into it. What happened to Nancy Mace was sick. It was sick. It was twisted. People are going to jail. It's horrific. She absolutely was. She is a liar. She does seek attention. I'm just saying, like, if we're gonna be the party where we say that we believe women, that we provide space for people with PTSD, that we recognize that like actions have consequences, but we can also recognize that sometimes your circumstances lead you to do different things. Sometimes, she got more. She used to be like a moderate. She wasn't like this, but as soon as all that stuff happened to her, she became like an extremist. That's all I'm saying. Like, extremism does this, and when people have traumatic experiences, and just imagine being like a woman in the GOP who's been abused sexually, mentally, and physically by a man, and some of your colleagues that are working with you have done that. You have no sympathy there. There's no empathy there. They're not standing. In fact, when she went to Congress and she shared her story, who was next to her? Did you have Mike Johnson next to her? Was it Lee Harvey McMullins? No, it was Lauren Boebert, and I think it was Luna from Florida. Not a single male member of the GOP stood with her while she did that. It was two women. Like, to me, this is very similar to the cult that I was raised in, when women come forward and they're not heard. And so women learn that they just have to cope with their abuse. They just have to bury their abuse. And a lot of times they'll act out in different ways. They'll lash out in different ways. Hurt people, especially if you are within an organization that is going to give you no empathy, that is going to give you no sympathy, that is not going to provide access to help. So look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that somebody being acting out like this on the right, who clearly, like, publicly has been abused, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like that she doesn't get the same sympathy and empathy that I would give somebody on the left for doing the same thing. Right? Like, I just think that there's a difference between when she does it and when Marjorie Taylor Greene does it. There's a difference between circumstances. That's all I'm saying. It's still insane. It still shouldn't happen. She still shouldn't be a member of Congress. She should step down. People shouldn't support her rhetoric. It's dangerous. It's harmful. It's hurtful. It's insane. All of that stuff can be true, but we can't be the party where we're like, hey, we care about women, and then also say that when a woman's abused by the right, oh, she had it coming. Oh, I have no empathy for her. You're no better. If that's your stance, you're no better. We can't be both. And if you're somebody that believes only women on the left and you don't believe women on the right, I think you've probably got some self-reflection to do too. We can't be both. Or excuse me, we can be both. That's what I meant. We can be both. We can't just do it on one side or the other. Let me check messages one more time, then we'll get out of here. I do have a hard cutoff today. I think a couple more comments came through. Give me 1 second. Charles said finish the goal. Charles, dude, you are way too kind all the time. I appreciate it, Charles. Did I miss any from Jen? Check real fast here. Jen, did I miss any that you know of? I think I read that from Tim. I think I got all of those. All right, Jen, if I missed some, go ahead and interrupt.
No, none that I see.
Okay.
I think.
Cool.
Yeah, I think got them.
All right, guys, we'll be back tomorrow morning and every weekday morning, 9:30 a.m. to 1 Pacific Standard Time, right here on Twitch and YouTube and Twitter and Facebook. Maybe someday again on TikTok. Make sure if you missed some of the show today, you want to catch it. We do show the replays on YouTube. You can catch us there. We have paid subscriptions. We have free subscriptions. While you're over on the page, like a video, leave a comment. It helps a long way to get us in the algorithm. We'll be back, like I said, tomorrow morning, bright and early. Thank you guys for all the support. The Republicans, thanks for being here. I hope you guys show up tomorrow, and I hope you know that this is a place that you can come and you can talk a whole lot of shit, and we're not gonna ban you unless you get real annoying. One of these days, I hope one of you guys comes up and has a chat with us. Until then, you're welcome to be here. Take care of yourselves, guys. Stay cute and cool, and have a great summer.